Okay, Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. We are starting today's lecture, which is on leadership behavior, and we have started the recording as well. Okay, leadership behavior is very important, and definitely it will conclude the whole leadership course that we have covered so far. So on completion of this lecture, you should be able to understand why we study leadership behavior and explain how to assess a leadership behavior. Okay, first of all, the definition of the Colin Powell, he says that the leaders sets the example, whether in the army or in civilian life. The other people in the organization take their cue from the leader, not from what the leader says, but what the leader does. So leadership behavior can be observed, whereas personality traits, values, or intelligence must be inferred from the behavior or measured with tests. So if we could identify how successful leaders act compared with unsuccessful leaders, we could design leadership talent management systems, allowing the organization to hire, develop, and promote the skills necessary for the future success. So this is very crucial for us to understand what are the traits that are common in the successful leaders in the organizations. So why study leadership behavior? There are a number of leaders who either do not know what to do and how to do it, or do not realize how their behavior is affecting the people who work for them. Leadership behaviors are a function of intelligence, personality traits, emotional intelligence, values, attitudes, interest, knowledge, and experiences. Over the time, leaders learn which behaviors are more appropriate and effective than others. So let's talk about behavioral theories of the leadership. So theories proposing that specific behavior differentiate leaders from non-leaders. There's a difference between theories of the leadership. One is a trait theory that talks about leadership
Hello?
as inherent. Yes, Abdulaziz. Abdulaziz, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay, so a trait theory basically is leadership is an inherent, hence we must identify the leader based on his/her traits. So it talks about like the traits that people behave that define us, what kind of person he is. Is he a leader or not? Similarly, behavioral theory, they talk about leadership as a skill set and can be taught to anyone. So we must identify the proper behavior to teach potential leaders. So this building blocks of the skills summarizes our previous lectures. Basically what it talks about is like on the base, there are like intelligence and personality traits, types and emotions, and intelligence and values, interest and motives, or the goals that leaders possess. Then over the period of time, they also develop knowledge and experience, and that develops their behavioral skills and competencies that they exhibit as the leader. Abdulaziz, want to say something? I can see your hand was raised. Okay, so this is the leadership that is developed over the period of time. So a leader with the intelligence, personality traits, and value, when they develop this knowledge, and when working on the particular area, they develop their experience, and then they make them successful.
How can we read this graph, or what's the importance of this graph, Doctor?
This graph tells us all the traits that are relevant to the leader. You know, they have basically summarized different topics that we have covered in the leadership. So this tells us the foundation of the block. They talk about their fundamentals, and there is very little you can change intelligence of individual. You know, there is some theories, they say the intelligence level cannot be increased, whatever the intelligence is. Then individual personality traits, they are the same. Then values, what kind of people they. But with the passage of knowledge and experience, they develop leadership behavior and skills and competencies. So later in this, we'll be talking about initiating structure and consideration. We'll be talking about employees and job-centered dimensions, the leadership grid, 360 feedback, competency models, leadership pipeline behavior, and community leadership behaviors. This is we're going to talk in later today's lecture. Okay, so behavioral theories of leadership. One on higher stage studies, they identify two critical dimensions of the leader behavior. One is that a leader, they are basically having considerations. Another one is initiating structure. In consideration, they are creating mutual respect and trust with the followers. And when they are like, the leaders create a mutual respect and trust with the follower. Second thing is initiating structure, like this is organizing and defining what group members should be doing. So a higher state basically talks about how you interact with other individuals, how you set the group behaviors. Whereas University of Michigan study, they identified two leadership styles that are similar to Ohio State's, but they have just talked in a different manner. Like they consider leaders, one style was employee-centered, like the leader is more focused toward interpersonal relationship between the leader and the follower, and the other was job-centered, which is like technical aspect of the job. Whereas Black and Mouton's managerial grid, there is one four leadership style found by crossing concern for production and concern for the people. So research shows that there is not one best style of leadership. The effectiveness of particular leadership style depends on the situation at hand. So the situation is very crucial and important. When we're talking about the situation, then how effectively the leader manages this situation. Okay, so this is the Black and Mount's managerial grade, in which on the bottom you can see like the leader's concern for the result, and on the left-hand side horizontally, vertically, they have concern for the people. So how would we see leaders on this grid? And how does the leader consider their followers? Imagine there's a leader that has a concern for the results is at 1-1, and concern for the people is very low. So he's not basically very much concerned about the result achieving, and he's not very concerned about the people. So this is called improvised management, like he is exertion of minimum effort to get required work done, inappropriate to sustain organizational management. So he's not very effective leader because he's not concerned about the people and achieving the result. Contrary to this, if you look in this grid here, on this side, which is 9-1, here the leader is more concerned about the results achievement, and he is least concerned about the concern for the people. So what kind of a leader is it? It's basically authoritative.
He's a manager, not a leader.
Yeah. But here we are just talking the same terms for both of them, like how they are dealing. That is a sophisticated term that will be discussed, like who is a manager or who is not a leader. So yes, in your definition, we can call him. He was a manager. He is more concerned about this because he's not a leader, you know.
Yes.
Okay, so efficiency in because he is more concerned about the efficiency and little concerned about the people. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this grid here, 1-9. What kind of management style is it? They call it a country club management style because the person is very much concerned to make people happy and little concerned about achieving organizational goal. So they don't consider this very useful management style, to be honest. As I remember one of the top CEO, he was saying like, my job is not to make my employees happy, because if I want to make my employees happy, I should be start selling ice cream. So the thing is, here it seems like they're selling ice cream to the employees. 9 is a grade. They call it team management, where you can see there's a high concern for the work accomplishment and also a high concern for the employees. And then we have got some mid-between kind of an approach, which is called middle of the road approach, in which there's a like simultaneously there is a concern for the employees and there's also a concern for the uh, task achievement. So I believe that most of the people will consider like 5 or 9 as better leaderships as compared to 1 or 1 or 9 obviously. Okay, so there is another concept that is called leadership pipeline. So this is very important and very interesting concept. And the leadership pipeline is a useful model for explaining whether leaders need to spend their time, what they should be focusing on, what they should be letting go, and the types of behavior they need to exhibit as they move from first line supervisor to functional manager to chief executive. This is very crucial for if leaders don't understand what is the right behavior they need to be doing, at what stage they are. So they will be very confused. They will see like, I'm making all the efforts, I'm busy in doing all kind of stuffs that I used to do like in my previous position, but they can't see progressing. And we will discuss it in the later, like why, because they are not exhibiting the behavior that is required by them in the current position. So their behavior was good when they were in the previous position, but now when he or she is in the current position, they have to change the behavior to that position. So the pipeline also describes the lessons people should learn as they occupy a particular organizational level, and the challenges they will likely face when they transit to the next level. So as such, this model provides a type of roadmap for the people wanting to occupy to the top leadership position in organization. We'll have a grid in the next, inshallah, or in the next slide, then we'll understand this. So according to this leadership pipeline model, the most effective leaders are those who can accurately diagnose the organizational level of their job and then exhibit the behavior commensurate with this level. So the pipeline also provides a potential explanation for why some people fail to advance. These individuals may not be focusing on the right things or may be exhibiting leadership behavior associated with the lower level organization. So we have got this grid over here that's going to explain to us to some extent why it is important to understand what is your level in the organization and what is required by them. So if you do not develop yourself to the right level, then you probably will never be able to grow. For example, if you are on a individual contributor level, like you are just hired as an engineer in a company, and that is the basic level on which you are doing, so you'll be measured by the individual performance. So let's see what are the competencies required by you, what are your time applications, like how you're going to spend your time, and what are your work values should be. So obviously when you are starting your career, you are required, if you are hired as an engineer, you are required to have technical proficiency, using company tool, and building relationship with the team member. And the time applications like meet personal due dates, whatever your times deadlines have been given to you, you arrive on the and depart on the time. And for the work values, you get results through personal proficiency, high quality work, accept the company values. So whatever the company values are, you'll have to accept them. Now, when an individual moves from the individual contribution to the first line supervisor, now his roles and responsibilities and his competencies are going to change. Here, he has to be involved into planning projects. Now, he is not going to do work himself. He might be required to do delegation, which is a management perspective thing. So if an engineer does not develop the delegation work, and he is just stuck, and he is not empowering his employees, and he is not giving coaching and feedback to his subordinates, and he is not doing the performance monitoring of his subordinates, so probably he would not be a very successful supervisor. So you'll see like his department in which he is supervising is not very efficient. So he has to develop these competencies and skills. So if he is adamant with those own thing, he's just working on himself, just mastering the tools and technique, but he's not effective with others, so he might face a problem. Similarly, he or she need to develop annual budgeting planning. So that's why in your MBA program, you go through financial learning and things like that, because at some point in time, this becomes very important for you to learn. Make time available for the followers. So you should not be busy all the time. So let like your followers, teammates, they should come and ask their queries, and then you should set your priorities for the work, because you have as a leader, because this is your first step into leadership. And get results through others. This is your core task to do. Success of a follower and success of the team should be your values. So you should not be concerned about success for yourself and getting your targets done. Now, when you move to the middle level management, this is like a different ball game. Here you are mostly involved in selecting, training, and managing first line supervisor. So you manage boundaries and deploy resources to the team. So what you are doing is you are monitoring the performance of each team, and then make time to coach first line supervisor. You appreciate managerial versus technical work, and then developing first line supervisor. Now going to the final, which is a functional leader, which is a higher level than this. So managers need to manage the whole functions. So here your mindset is going to be changed. Like there's going to be lots of like macro level thinking is also required, and micro level thinking is also required. So if I remember Indra Nuvi, she was saying like a successful CEO should have a macro level and micro level, like level thinking. So he should be able to see the thing minutely, and then he should flash back and come back and see as a whole company, like how the company is performing. So that's a totally different kind of mindset is required. So you should be able to communicate and listen to everyone in the function. So here we are talking about listening is a key trade. So make sub functions trade off. Sometimes you might have to give away some of the tasks to others so that they will be doing it for you. So interact with the other sub functions. So you will be talking with the other departments, and your thinking is on the department and functions level. Then you will be determine 3 years vision of the function. You interact with the business units and team leads. You'll have to have a clarity of how the function supports the business and value for the sub functions. That is what you're defining, and all the rest of the team members are going to be following. So this is crucial. That's why whenever I talk to my engineering student, that in the first stage you need engineering degrees and then the skills, but when you move on to other levels, this is going to be changed to the management, planning, leading, controlling, communication, listening. So there are different kind of skills that you'll need to, especially financial skills. So imagine if there is a manager who does not know financial things. So if he go to some higher position, then he would be very unsuccessful. Okay, so this is the pipeline grade. Similarly, the mindset for how the business unit leaders, group manager, and the CEO will be thinking. So this is on the next level is a business unit from the functional department. So build cross-functional leadership teams, and then financial acumen. So this is very crucial. And if I remember who is the Richard Kawasaki. He is the author of the Rich Dad Poor Dad. He says and he doesn't like the concept when we say do whatever you feel you like. He says do whatever is right. So when he was talking about this, he said I developed my financial acumen because I wanted to know like how much my money is being spent. So then balance future goals with the short-term business needs. So this is crucial. This required lots of conceptual level thinking. Then develop 3 years vision for the business unit, monitor financial results, and effectively manage the time. From values perspective, value all stops function, value organizational culture, and employees engagement. Now, on a higher level, from the business unit leader is the group managers. They manage business portfolios. They allocate capital to maximize business success and develop business unit leaders. The time allocations are develop strategies for multiple business units and monitor financial results for multiple businesses and interact with the CEO's team. And their values are the success of all the business units because they're looking for the business unit. They interact with internal and external stakeholder. So now these are the people that are linked outside the company as well. So they might be attending meetings, they might be going to the conference as well. So they might be attending meetings, they might be going to the conferences and things. So they are involved in those things. So coming to the last, which are the CEOs or enterprise leaders, they must have to analyze and critique strategy. They must manage the entire company and multiple constituencies, deliver predictable business results, set company directions, create company culture, and manage the board of directors, which is again is a crucial. Like how do you manage, how do you do the communication, how do you interact people, how do you involve them, how do you get their feedback. So many people can just retire on a group manager level, they cannot go to the next level. And in the later slides, we will discuss what are the reasons they might not be very successful. So they manage external stakeholders, they spend significant time reviewing the financial results, they spend significant time doing strategic planning. From value perspective, value a limited set of key long-term objectives. So they develop the value for the business, they value advice from the board of directors, and they listen to them carefully and they just have to act upon what is best for the company. They value input from the wider variety of the stakeholder, which is their key responsibility of the CEOs.
Doctor, here it is important to know all these or memorize because it confused from one level to another.
Uh, I think it's important for us to understand first the concepts, like what kind of leadership skills are required at different levels.
Yeah,
So I was thinking that you will be very much interested because there is a certain set of skills and that you must need to know when you are going through this ladder of career. So I must believe that we should be very much familiar with them. Okay, so there is another way which is called Fiedler's contingency model, and that will again be linked with this like how leaders are developed over the period of time. So it's a good leadership depends on a match between leadership and the situation. So Fielder gives a very good kind of mechanism in which we can measure the effectiveness of the leaders and how much they are linked with the relationship and to motivate them. So what they have made is a list of questions which are on the LPC, which is least preferred colleague. This is interesting. LEAST, least, PRE, sorry, my writing, double F, preferred colleague. Okay, so what they do is they make a set of questionnaire and give it to the leader or the manager and ask them to think of a colleague that you, in other words, you don't like him, okay, or you consider him least preferred colleague. So everybody must have a colleague that you hate the most, you don't like his, there can be numerous traits because of that you might not be liking them. So they have developed this LPC, least preferred colleague, and they have learned like through our mindset like how we see our colleagues. Anyone wants to say something? Okay, so leadership is a part of one's personality and therefore relatively enduring and difficult to change. And this theory also defines that leadership style must be fit in the situation. So what they say is that diagnosis situation, how does the leader plays between this situation. First of all, there's a leader and member relationship. Leader member relationship should be, we'll have to see if it is good or if it is a poor. Then we'll see the degree of the task structure. If the task they are doing is fully structured, then this can be different, and if it's not fully structured, then there is a lots of leader and follower relationship is required, for which follower needs to get instructions time and again. And then the amount of the position power. So what is the strength of the power of the leader, if he is very strong or if he is weak. Another criterion that they have given is the task-oriented leaders are more successful. So they can be, they have defined two types of leaders. One are task-oriented, another one are relationship-oriented, according to this Fiedler's model. So the task-oriented people or the leaders, for them it's very favorable when they have a high control of the situation. So people who are task-oriented, they don't need to be having good relationship with the employee. And they have very unfavorable when they have a low control of the situation. So if they do not have a control, for example, the position is not very strong, they cannot get the things done by the other employees. But they can get the things done because they are concerned for the top when they have a high control. Okay, reward system, all this. Contrary to them, relationship-oriented leaders are most successful in situations of moderate control. So they will have somehow of the control, and somehow they will use their relationships. This explains to us the clear situation that the situation that best fit for a task-oriented leader. So task-oriented leader situation in which he has a good leader membership relationship or he has a poor, it doesn't matter. If he has a high or a low task structures, so if there's a high task structure, he will be having a strong control, and if he has a high task structure, it can be have a weak position power control, or if the power control is strong. So it doesn't matter, but he will have a high task motivation. Similarly, in the low control situation, when the leader and the member, they do not have a good, like they have a poor relationship, and the task of the structure is also weak, still it can give him a power in which he can exercise the strong position, or it can be weak power position, still it can suit the task motivated individual. Contrary to him, a leader that goes with the moderate control situation, who is a relationship related kind of individual, for him it suits either if he has good relationship or poor relationship with employees. But if he has poor relationship, then he must have a high task structures, and like everything is defined properly for the position, and then in this can set him have a strong or weak relationship, or the power position is low, and this can also take him to the weak situation. So basically this talks about the individual when they are task motivated leaders. They have high control situations and they have low control situation, and they can use of these situations in their favor. Whereas best fit for relationship is in the moderate control situations. There is another way to see the leaders, and that is through community leadership. So this leadership is different than the normal leadership. There's a light to that is through community leadership. So this leadership is different than the normal leadership. There's a light to see the individual, how effectively he communicates with the people, how effectively he can mobilize the people. So imagine like in a workforce structure, you have always have a power, and you can use the power. But what if you do not have no position and no power? So that's why community leader is the process of building a team of volunteers to accomplish some important community work. Sometimes in certain countries, when you see there's a sanitary issue, there's the local issue, or sometimes you want to develop campaigns for the blood, and there's a like many patients for that needs the blood. So there can be some people there effectively mobilize other individuals, and these are called community leaders. So you will see many people, they have the ability, they go outside their domain and they gather other people, they make them to go and work for the common cause or probably some social issue. They can go for the plastic bags usage. They can go against campaign against environmental friendly kind of things. So these are called community leaders. So that really needs a huge like basically three kind of efforts from them. First is how they are framing, how they are telling them the story, like why we need to go and uh, like campaign. For example, you are doing some charity work, so how they frame the thing, how they develop a story, how they convince the other people, because he does not have no power on them, they are all volunteer. And then they develop a social capital based on it, so people trust and people, and they have a good number of people that are uh, following this ideology what he is or she is selling, and then mobilizing them, making them to go and do campaigns. We can see nowadays many campaigns are being done. So this is important, framing is important, and how they mobilize the people and how they develop the social capital. So this is an interplay between them, and that's why they are called community leaders. So this is also another part of the leadership. Okay, so there is another way in which we can measure the leader, that is called multi-rater feedback instrument. Multi-rater feedback instrument is basically 360-degree tool. So one of the improve leadership effectiveness is to provide leadership practitioners with feedback. So how much feedbacks are important regarding the frequency and skills with which they perform their various tasks. So today most organizations use 360-degree tools for measurement development as part of a training and coaching program, in succession planning, or even as a part of the performance appraisal system. So leaders who received 360-degree feedback had higher performance work units than the leaders who did not receive this type of feedback. So 360-degree feedback is very important. And we know that what is 360 feedback? It's basically a system. I can add tremendous value, but only if they are used for the development purposes. So the key to higher observer rating is to develop a broad set of leadership skills that can help group accomplish their goals. So managers who shared their 360-degree feedback results with their followers and work on an action plan to improve their rating had a dramatic improvements in their others rating over the 5 years period. So that's why 360-degree feedback is very important. Leaders must set develop goals and commit to development plans to improve skills if they want to see improvements in others rating. So we know that through what is 360 feedback is from your manager, your top manager. What is his feedback on you? Imagine this is you yourself. And then what is your feedback from the colleagues? What is your own feedback about yourself? How your juniors they think about you. So when we together make this feedback, that makes a 360 feedback. So this 350 feedbacks is considered as an important dimension that helps to dramatically improve the performance of the leaders. So this is a proven mechanism. There's another way that is called a self-defeating behavior. This is also very common in the leaders. Like self-defeating behavior is an action or attitude that once helped an individual cope with the stressful experience, but interferes with the individual's ability to cope in a new situation. So many times in our daily lives, we go through a situation in which you feel like defeated, we feel like we are nothing, and then your energy level is very low and your motivation is very low. Probably you might see failures. If you just remember the Steve Jobs, how he was kicked out from his same position and the company that he developed. So the thought process that the managers or the leaders go through and what was their recovery process is very important. So that helps them to recover and be successful in the future as well. Elon Musk, when he was asked, like, what is a typical question that you ask from the candidates when they apply for the job? He says, like, I asked them, and that's very relevant to this, what was your failure? So talk me about your failure, and then what was your recovery process? Like, what did you do during the failure? Okay, so he says like everybody's failure is unique, so everybody will have to come up with a real story, and that tells me about the individual. So what kind of a person he or she is. So self-defeating behaviors are high practiced and often performed automatically with the little conscious thoughts. So that's what every individual does. He does a self-talk and he just sees how I am doing. And a person may rationalize the appropriateness of the self-defeating behavior by recalling some particular situation where the behavior was adopted. And then he or she gives himself like, this thing has happened to me, and that's how I coped up and come out of with this trauma or stress. So why do we need to think about change behavior, and why we need to think about the leaders? So changing behavior, especially long-standing pattern of the behavior, can be quite difficult. So everything we do on a regular basis that develops our behavior, and when we develop a behavior, then it's become a lasting thing in our personality, and then it's become very challenging to change our behavior. So learning how to change your own and others' behavior is a key leadership skill. So that's what the leaders, they are very good in learning. And there's another term that we call it unlearning. So learning is also important for the leaders, and then unlearning. So most of the time, what you have learned over the period of time that may not be relevant in the future. So like imagine the introduction of the AI. So AI is going to change the whole canvas of the way the things are done. So there is lots of unlearning that is required by the leaders. So good leaders know how to change and modify the behaviors of their followers so that they can be more effective team members and better achievers. So to change the behaviors of the followers, the term which we use, monkey see, monkey do. So the leaders, they also should have the capability to change their behavior. So if they can change the behavior, their followers can also follow that. Okay, so there are like development plans. On this, leaders need to have insight about their development needs, like what is a deficiency in me about their development needs, like what is a deficiency in me and what are the areas that I need to be improved. And this can be done through 360-degree feedbacks. This can be a great tool for us to improve ourselves, because the mistake that you've been doing like for the last 5 years, you'll be committing it for the lifelong until you don't get a feedback on the mistake. So leaders need to determine which new skills will have the highest personal and organizational payoff, and build development plans and address these needs. Leaders and followers who have a written plan seems more likely to keep developing in their radar screens uh, and take the action necessary to acquire new skills. So you must have noticed in your own organization that in your annual ACR, confidential reports, we always give, like in multinational companies, we give our development objectives, that I want to do MBA or MS, and in this year, this is my learning goals and objectives. And they regard this as well. So leaders can build accountability by having different people providing ongoing feedback on the action steps of taken to develop a skill, or reviewing progress on the development plans with the boss. But this requires a big heart, that you should be able to willing to accept the comments, that you should be wholeheartedly listening to them and improving your weakness. Otherwise, you'll just have the weakness for the whole life. So this also tells us about the leader's willingness to learn. Now, one of the way is through coaching. So coaching helps leaders to improve the bench strength of the group, which in turn should help the group to accomplish its goals. So coaching is the process of equipping people with the tools, knowledge, and opportunities they need to develop themselves and become more successful. So you can have a formal coaching and formal is one-to-one relationship between the manager and the leader, or the manager, or the coach. Informal, you can have forge a partnership between, and you can make a friend with someone, and then you can inspire commitment, then you can grow into skills, you can promote persistence, because if you are not persistent in learning and development, you cannot learn. And then how you shape the environment, how you affect the other individual. And then there is another option that is called mentoring, which is not as formal as coaching. In coaching, a coach can be like the same person and be coaching to all the others, but mentoring is more an informal way in which people are interacted with some senior people, and they just consider them in an informal way or the formal way as their leaders or role models. So it occurs when a protege or a future leader and a mentor build a long-term relationship based on the friendship, similar interest, and mutual respect. So we always, whenever we join a company, we have someone which we idealize, we consider like he is well accomplished, and we listen to his or her advice. There can be some companies, they can have formal mentoring process. It occurs when the organization assigns a relatively inexperienced but high potential leader to one of the top executives in the company. So they see the potential in the a young manager or leader, and they just assign him to the top manager. So leadership practitioners should look for the opportunities to build mentorship relationship with senior leaders whenever possible. Okay, so this is it for today's lecture. It was not very big, and this is like straightforward. There are different mechanisms. They talk about why leadership behavior is important. Obviously, behavior is an outcome of his mindset, his ideology, his skills, and all the employees, they look on their leaders. In previous lectures, we established like why under the stress and the tension and the confusion, all the people look on the leaders. So that's their behavior, and those situations makes them different than the followers. Okay, so we are done with today's lectures. If you have any questions, you are welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mustafa. Thank you.